huge East Asian fishing industry is not only polluting the water with their fishing nets, but removing the life within it. And although it can and should be argued that East Asia is the bulk of the issue, it is not just them. We see pollution on large scales within the United States, going back to look at Shannon's understanding and firsthand experience with the Potomac River. Animals that try to hold these ecosystems together are suffering as well. And it is happening because there is not enough effort or motive to prevent the pollution that is occurring at such large scales. So where do we find the motive? Pavel shares in his article a legal conventionalist approach to pollution that, quote, the interests of different people will inevitably come into conflict. Legally, we can try to minimize the harm by making judgments about kinds of interests and the trade because there's no manual that assigns exact weights to various interests. We must rely on the fallible judgment of the community legislators, end quote. Essentially, the argument here is that we need the leaders of our country to recognize the issue and step up. It could not be more obvious to the legislators in D.C. driving over the Potomac River every day to get to work. The term fallible was only used because look at where the marine ecosystem is at now. It is easy to change this by just changing the laws. Walker shares in his article, Nutrient Pollution in Economic Perspective, that, quote, the value of what would have to be given up in order to achieve a given water quality goal represents the cost of meeting the goal. To compare benefits and costs requires that both be measured using a common metric, such as dollars. Both the costs and benefits of water quality improvements can be difficult to quantify in dollar terms, end quote. Walker argues that the best way to prevent pollution on a large scale is for the government to incentivize doing the right thing. Restrictions are difficult to create, especially when considering water pollution, because it is nearly impossible to quantify. And if one can quantify it, it is even more difficult to determine the source of the pollution. Because of this, restrictions on pollution are not the best move. Legislators should instead look to provide financial or monetary incentives to prevent pollution. Think about if Nike would be more active towards helping the environment if they were getting paid to do so. But one company or one government cannot make all the difference. Burrell shares in her article why we need an international agreement on marine plastic pollution that, quote, no single solution will stop marine plastic pollution. International collaboration is necessary to reduce the demand for single-use plastic products, shift to a sustainable plastics economy, and improve waste management infrastructure that promotes zero waste. To do this, the international community must commit to specific, measurable, time-bound targets to reduce plastic emissions into our oceans, end quote. It is clear that the world as a whole needs to make an effort to create change, and that is the problem. Who would loosen their economic grasp of the fishing market to prevent the fish from dying? Would America? Would Western Europe? Would East Asia? Probably not. And how could someone blame them? They're making bank. Yes, the marine ecosystem is taking a toll for it, but to them, making money is more important. The cost of the fishing industry in East Asia does not outweigh the benefit. Heinzerling shares in her article, Pricing the Priceless, Cost-Benefit Analysis of Environmental Protection, that, quote, if decisions are based strictly on cost-benefit analysis and willingness to pay, most environmental burdens will end up being imposed on the countries, communities, and individuals with the least resources, end quote. She goes on to say, quote, calculations that are acceptable, even common sense, for financial matters can prove absurd or objectionable when applied to moral issues." End quote. It really is a moral issue. One's opinion on this and what they are willing to do to stop it is very telling of character and values. Americans should want the people running their country to have values that place life over money in any scale. Taking a step back from just the ocean, we see humanity, or maybe better phrased as a lack of humanity, taking its effect on ecosystems all over planet Earth. So change the laws. Vote. Protect. Make the world we live in better for prosperity. It's cheesy to say, but it really is now or never, and I would not want to live in a world without the ocean.